Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Careers Launch Online. My name is Craig, I am a volunteer for UKSEDS, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. I'd like to apologise about technical difficulties we encountered yesterday. They've since been fixed and we're ready to go ahead with today's episode. If you don't know about UKSEDS, we are the UK's National Student Space Society. We are a group of students and young professionals who run different space-related events and competitions across the country, and we also operate an early careers website called spacecareers.uk. Our webinar series is run by spacecareers.uk team and are designed to educate on careers in the space sector. We will be holding further webinars in the future. Look out for those on our social media. Before we get started, I'd like to note a recording of this webinar will be made available on the UKSEDS YouTube channel shortly afterwards. Secondly, we'd love to hear from you. If you're on Twitter, you can use hashtag CareersLaunchOnline. To explain how this webinar will work, it will consist of a 20-minute presentation by our guests, and then a 20-minute Q&A session where I'll read out questions that you've all submitted. If you are watching this on our website, there's a form you can fill in and submit questions. If you're watching this directly from YouTube, you can find the link in the description. Today's webinar is hosted in collaboration with HSpace. They're going to give you some advice on preparing for interviews. I'll hand it over to them now.
Thank you very much, Greg. So, nice to meet you all. And so today we decided not to show our face, not because we don't want to, but because we think you would have better experience seeing the presentation in a big screen. So my name is Yannick. I'm a recruiter for now almost a year at HSpace. Prior to that, I've been working for the different industry in recruitment, but also in HR. And I'm currently living in Germany, but I'm originally from Switzerland, from the French-speaking part. I think the best way now would be to let my colleague Natalia to present.
Thank you, Yannick. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalia. I'm also a recruiter with a background in industrial and organizational psychology. I specialize in technical recruitment and sourcing, and I work with HSpace for a year and a half right now. Together with my team, we are recruiting space engineers for the biggest clients in Europe. And I'm particularly interested in talent management and development. So I hope this webinar will be helpful for you and will help you prepare for the interview better and get your dream job soon.
Good, thank you. So on the content for today, so I will just do a little introduction on HSpace, so you know what or who we are. Then I will discuss more detail on the type of interview you might get and how to prepare your interview. And Natalia will go then further in detail in the type of question you will get and how to answer them. And as Greg mentioned at the beginning, then we will follow it by a Q&A. So HSpace is a contracting company in the space sector. We provide to our big customers such as ESA, Airbus, Ariane Group, UKSEDS, and many more, human resources, and also all the service which are related to human resources to our client. And our employee works on various programs such as Galileo program, but also any space debris program you might get, but also in LISA Pathfinder and many more. HSpace is in the business for now nearly 40 years. I think one aspect which is very interesting is that Scott, our founder, was working in the Apollo missions from 11 to 19, if I'm not mistaken, and then decided to move to Europe and founded this company. I think the interesting part for everyone is that we are not all engineers inside this business and not all in the space industry. But because of this history that HSpace has, we are all bounded and have this common interest at least. And knowing that Scott is still CEO, we still have all this very big passion for this industry. Shortly again, those are the location where we are. So we are based in the Netherlands, in Noordwijk. That's where Natalia is currently working. And we have 2 further offices in Germany, one in Bremen, where I'm sitting to support this time our customers, Airbus and Ariane Group, and in Darmstadt to support ESA with ESOC and UMETSAT. And I think you are all here not to hear about HSpace, but more about how to prepare your interviews. So let's start. You have 2 types of interview. You have the screening type of interview, such as done by a recruiter, or a technical interview. The screening interviews are usually 15 to 30 minutes. Usually are done by a recruiter, as I mentioned, following you applying to a position, or you being contacted by any recruiter on LinkedIn or any other platform. The technical interview is there mostly done by technical manager to future manager, and is already at the second stage. Usually it's a face-to-face interview, but also sometimes just video call, based now with the COVID-19 situation, for instance, but also if you're located in a very, or applying for a country which is far further away, to avoid certain cost. Understand that those are types of interview, not necessarily the amount of interview you might get. Sometimes you have only 1 screening interview and 2 or 3 technical interviews, like big companies like Google, for instance, to have 4 technical interviews. This will mostly vary between companies and company culture. Maybe an interesting point in the contracting business, such as HSpace, when you have an interview with me or one of my colleagues or any other of our competitor, the interview are mostly a screening interview. But because we are also providing then you or your profile to our customer, we need to go a bit deeper than just a screening interview. So sometimes the screening interview in terms of a contracting company might get a bit longer, let's search more 30 minutes to 45 minutes, where we then ask those administrative questions you would normally get in a screening interview, like language skills. Sometimes even part of the interview might be in another language, just to assess your level. But with this contracting company, you might get also like more technical questions. But now I think how you need to prepare. So when you apply to a position, you most probably have read the job description. You might have applied a few weeks ago. So a good thing would be first to take your job description and have a copy somewhere, like take a screenshot or download it, or whatever your preferred way would be, but try to keep it somewhere, because the job description might not be online anymore when you have your interviews. Maybe not for the screening interview, but when you have a technical interview, sometimes the position is at that time when you are having the interviews not online anymore, and you might find it difficult to find again the job description. So go back to this job description which you saved, and then go back to all the different points you might not understand. So sometimes you have abbreviation you don't understand. Sometimes you might have softwares. Try to figure it out what those means. In a job description, you might also find information on the department, and based on those information, when you have it, then go maybe on the website and find further information on the department, on the projects they are involved usually, and try to figure it out what your job will be before you have the interview. This is really important for you to understand, because so you will be able to prepare some question you might get, or you might ask. You need to ask, because if you don't understand a point, an interview is not just you selling yourself, but also the company selling itself. So if you have to understand job description to be sure you want to work for this company. And secondly, it's a good way for you also to prepare certain questions the interviewer might ask you, because they might ask you a certain level in certain software programming, or any mechanical skills you might get, and maybe you know based on your background that you are missing some aspect of it, and so you are better prepared on certain type of question you might have from your interviewer. Further checks you should do or can do is obviously checking the other pages of the company, like their Twitter account, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you might find on social media platform, but also sometimes just basically news, or if they have patented anything in the last years, or if they are doing collaboration. I think that's a very interesting aspect you can find out. And a very final check would be to check your interviewer. Usually when you have an interview, you have the name of the person, at least one name of the person who will be interviewing you. This person, you can try to figure it out on LinkedIn or other platforms, what this person is doing, what was his previous job, what is his current role, so you have maybe a better understanding of the job you will do. Try not to contact the person directly on LinkedIn and say, oh, I have an interview with you in a few weeks. This is maybe not the best way, but at least for you to have a chance to have a better understanding who this person is. Here you have also a link on this presentation, but all the links will be shared later in the stage, so you can check more information online if you need still information. Another part you need to prepare, and this is more an administrative part, and this is really more useful for someone who is not a national from the UK or any country, or someone who is planning to move out to a new country. Try to figure out your notice period, so if you are working, try to figure out what's your notice period. If you're not working, try to have an idea of what you could be able to, when you could be able to start. And then you have few further information you can check, such as salary expectation you might get. Usually here in Europe or Western European countries like Germany, France, Switzerland, Netherlands, most of the time the salaries are given in gross annual salary. It depends really on the country, but usually it's gross, not net, because the net salary is always variable between each person. If you have a family, if you have kids, if you have anything else, so it has a lot of impact, and depending also the insurances you have. So therefore, usually the salary you will negotiate will be a gross salary. A good way also to check the salary expectation you might have is to check web pages like Glassdoor, based on the type of position, like engineer, analyst, or whatever. And but this is not obviously the most important part. The last part also is to look at what's your living costs or living expenses in the new country. There are those two links are a good way for you to figure it out how expensive it is to live in another country. For instance, for me, when I moved from Switzerland to Germany, I knew that the cost of living would be completely different, and therefore also all my salary expectation I might have in Switzerland will be much lower than the one have here in Germany. So I think that's a very important aspect you should think of. And the very last tip, based on my experience, would be when you are moving to a new country, try to have at least a week before in the new place. I know it's a luxus sometimes. Sometimes you start and you arrive just one day before your first day. It will help you. It will help you to settle down if you can be there a week before, because you have a lot of admin aspect you will get. But yeah, that's a general information. Yeah, Natalia, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Yannick. Okay, so let's take a closer look now into the types of questions you may be asked during the interview and also how you can answer them. So I'm going to tell you about 4 types of questions which are most common during the interview. First, we have so-called fact-based questions, like who, what, when, and where, which are very simple and refer directly to you. So basically, you will face them in the beginning of the conversation when a recruiter will ask about yourself, about your last work experience or educational background. And these questions will make you more comfortable. You will have a chance to present yourself and also open the further discussions. So fact-based questions are great to get to know you better in the beginning of the interview. And what is important, you can easily prepare answers for this type of questions up front and introduce yourself to the company in the best possible way. Let's move to the next questions. We have a second group, which is a behavioral and hypothetical question. Those types of questions help recruiters evaluate your personality and learn if you are the person for the job, basically. So during behavioral questions, recruiter will ask you to recall past experiences and describe how did you behave during it. So, for example, you see the questions on a presentation. How did you lead a group of people at your last job? Or question, tell me about the time when you overcame a workplace obstacle to meet a deadline. This will give a good idea of what you have excelled and struggled with in the past. So you will talk about your actual experiences. So it's good to think about it before the interview. For example, recall your biggest challenges or teamwork or achievements or failures you had. Then we have hypothetical questions. And those present you with a hypothetical situation, and recruiter will ask, how would you handle it? So for example, how would you react if you found out your boss was doing something illegal? These questions allow you to craft perfect response to some made up scenario, but you should be honest with it, with answering to this type of question, because behavioral questions will force you to share real experiences, and it's really easy to see if you're not truly yourself when answering hypothetical question. So to sum up, both types of questions are most often directly related to the role you are applying for. So know what the role requires. Think about some situations you could have in this job, some hypothetical scenarios, but also think about your past experiences and if any of them were similar to the ones you can face in this role. By answering this question, you can show how you will handle the specifics of the role and what do you really value at work. And then we have the third group of questions, so-called unexpected ones. And you see the examples on the screen. Sometimes you think that they are a little bit weird or irrelevant, but actually it helps to uncover better your personality. And those questions help sometimes to see how quick thinking you are and how well you handle stress. You cannot really prepare for this type of questions, but while answering, try to stay calm and take your time. You can reason out loud. It's a very good way to respond, even if you struggle to reach out the final thought. And of course, you can always ask some clarifying questions to follow up. So try to focus on the role. If you are able to think of any response that highlight particular skills that qualifies you for this job, then basically it's a jackpot. And remember that during this type of questions, your thought process matters more than your final answer. And typically there are no right or wrong answers. So again, focus on the structure of your thought process rather than your answer. And any attempt, I'm sure, will be appreciated by the interviewer. And then we have the final group of questions, follow-up questions. When interviewer wants to get some more details out of your answers. So again, you have examples on the screen. Sometimes you may struggle to tell more about particular experiences. So remember that you can also ask questions. So if you are not sure what more you can tell, just ask recruiter to specify what exactly he or she wants to know more. And so we discussed 4 different types of questions: fact-based, behavioral, hypothetical, unexpected, and follow-up questions. And now I would like you to focus on answers during the interview. So I will present you 2 different ways of how you can answer to particular questions. On this slide, you can see the first model, which is STAR model. This one is very good for behavioral and hypothetical questions. STAR is basically abbreviation from situation, task, action, results. So points you need to focus on during answering. You also have a link to that, so you can Google it easily after, but let me guide you a little bit through this model first. So let's go back to one of our behavioral questions we had in the previous slide. Tell me about the time when you overcame a workplace obstacle to meet a deadline. I will try to answer it with this STAR model. So first is the preparation point. I'm thinking about any past event when I had to meet a deadline and there was some obstacle. Then I need to describe the situation. So for example, I was working on the vacancy for a client with a 3 days deadline only for submitting the candidates. Then my task. My task was to find, interview, and submit at least 5 candidates for this vacancy. Then I need to describe the action I took. So I have decided to search only for candidates in our internal database since they knew already our recruitment process and the way we cooperate with clients. And then the result, thanks to that, there was no need for interviewing, just the preparation of the documents for submission. And as a result, I managed to submit candidates on time and fill the vacancy. So as you can see, you can easily use this model to answer any behavioral or hypothetical question. First of all, it will help you structure your thoughts. And second, you will be better understood by the interviewer, which is very important. And then we have the second type of answers. The second model is called elevator pitch, and you can use it while answering questions about yourself. So we discussed fact-based questions. The elevator pitch will be really good for this one. It is the way you tell interviewer the most important details about you or your business or a project in a very short amount of time. And a good elevator pitch should last no longer than a short elevator ride. So let's say 30 seconds, hence the name. But you can go up to, let's say, 60 seconds when presenting yourself. And it's all about deciding what you want your audience to remember you for. And maybe you remember, I actually used the elevator pitch while introducing to you. So there are, let's say, 3 steps to do this. First of all, you should include information about who you are and what do you do. So add information about your background, skills, and interests. And I said, hi, I'm Natalia. I'm a recruiter with a background in industrial organizational psychology, and I specialize in technical recruitment and sourcing. The second point, be more specific to draw the attention. So for example, share some information about what are you working on at the moment or what have you accomplished recently. And I said, currently I work with HSpace, and together with my team, we are recruiting space engineers for the biggest client. And then the last step, you need to conclude your elevator pitch and tell your objectives. And in my example, I said, I'm particularly interested in talent management, so I hope this webinar will be useful for you. So elevator pitch should generally explain your skills and goals and why would you be a beneficial person to have within the team. It doesn't have to include all of these components, but it usually does at least explain what kind of person are you and what are your values. So thank you so much for listening to us. I really hope it was beneficial. I think now we can go to the questions. If you have any, we are more than happy to answer regarding the presentations or anything regarding the preparation for the interview.
Okay, so thank you to Natalia and Yannick for the presentation and interviewing. It can be scary when you attend an interview, but hopefully this presentation helped prepare you for your next interview. So as Natalia said, we're going to move on to Q&A section now. So if you can submit questions via the Q&A box on the website, we'll try and get through as many as possible in the next 10 minutes. You can find the link in the description box if you're watching on YouTube. So the first question is, what should you wear to an interview?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
What should you wear to an interview? What clothes should you wear?
What clothes? That's a good question. Well, first of all, you can always ask recruiter about this if there is any dress code. So if you are receiving an invitation for the interview, I'm sure that you can always ask about it. But most of the recruiters send this information as well with the invitation. But to be 100% sure, just ask if there is any dress code. If somehow you cannot contact the recruiter, then it's probably just be more elegant, casual. Let's say just a shirt, white shirt, and black jeans or trousers. But you can definitely ask about it to specify.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what should you do if you can't think of anything to say? When you're answering the question.
Be honest. Be honest. Say it, and maybe is it just because the real question is you cannot answer because you never had the situation? Then be honest. You can say basically you never had the situation, and you can explain, okay, maybe hypothetically I would do so. Or if you didn't understand the question, then ask the interviewer what you should ask, what he is expecting in the type of question, like in a certain nice way. And if you basically don't know whatever the question is, be honest. And if you cannot say something, or he asks you something you don't know, sometimes it's hard to say I don't know, but just say it. Natalia?
Yeah, I agree with you. If you don't know the answer, then just tell you don't know the answer. If you don't understand the question, as well, explain the recruiter that you are not sure what to answer. Can you repeat the question, or can you explain the question in some other ways? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, at the end of the interview, what should you ask the company?
I would say that definitely you should prepare the questions before the interview. And I'm sure that everyone is expecting questions from you at the last stage of the interviews, especially. I think, again, you should sit and think before the interview what is important for you at work. Like, what style of work would you prefer? Would you prefer to work within a team, or you prefer to work individually? What kind of manager do you like? What are you planning to do in the future? And then based on that, if you have this overview, you can create a question for the company. So ask them about, how do they work? About the project, also about their plans for the future, for the development, for the company in general, but also for this particular role, like how they see you in the next couple of years. Because always candidates are getting those questions, like how do you see yourself in 5 years? But you can also ask recruiters, or then your future managers, how they see this role, the person who will join the company, how they should develop within the company for the next couple of years. Yannick, is there anything on your side?
I think I would say the same as you did, as you said, but I would even add, if you have any point which appear during the interview and it sounds either weird because, I don't know, they say we don't have, or we don't accept whatever situation or a point which was strange during the interview. That's obviously a nice questions to ask if you have any weird points which appeared in the interview. And if you have really nothing to ask, basically ask what's the next stage in the interview process. That would be the very last question you should ask, but because usually this question will be covered at the end by the recruiter or by anyone who is in the interview and tell you a bit more about the next stage. But yeah, basically you can ask that one as a very last question, what you should expect and or in how many days you should expect an answer.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, if you're a student and you're doing a placement, when will your interview be? Will it be in May time?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again?
If you're a student and you're doing a placement, as in you're working for a company over the summer, when will your interview be?
Yannick, can you take this
Yeah,
one?
so no problem. So when you are saying when the interview would be, or for this year?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, depending really on the company. So it's really depending on how the company is planning the interview. Most probably this year, most of the interview will be video based because of the obvious reason of social distancing. But in terms of time frame, it's difficult to say. I mean, I remember a situation in the past when I was applying for position. I had to do internships during the summer, and I figured out that I thought maybe a month, 2 months to find an internship should be fine. And in the end, I took 4 months to find an interview, and my interview was on the Friday, and no, I think it was on a Thursday, and I started on the Monday. So it really depends on the company you are applying to. The bigger the company is, the longer the process will be. If you are talking of a startup or a small company where the process might be lean, and depending also on if they are paying you, you have also all these aspects which might get take a bit more time to prepare. So I would say in general, yeah, it's going to be most probably this year a video interview. And if you are looking for an internship or placement for this year, it's going to be in the next few weeks, depending again what's the time frame. If they are expecting you to start in 1st of June, I mean, most probably you had the interview, and if it's in July or 1st of July, the start, you should get in the next few weeks. I'm not sure if I answered the question correctly or if I understood really the question.
No, that's great. That's great. The next question is, how has COVID-19, the coronavirus, affected the space sector?
Should I get it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. At least for HSpace, I would say, let's talk about our customers. In the way of interviewing, it's really we've seen that companies or industry are looking really now to interview more video-based interview. We even had some starter which are now started, but based in their home location. So we have someone who started to work for a position here at UKSEDS in Germany, and the person is still located and based in Sweden. So you have that kind of weird aspect. And in general, in this sector, I would say some companies like Airbus is a bit struggling. That's definitely a case I think we can say at the moment. But the big institution, like ESA and everything, and all those organizations, ESA, DLR, at least in what we have, the experience is they are still hiring. The process a bit slower than usual, but they are still looking for position. And I expect the slowdown what we have with the industrial customers to be when it's going to go back to, I would say, normal situation. The wave will be in the opposite way, and all the people who they were not able to place, they will probably need to replace or to do the placement during that time. So probably for us, a recruiter, the busy period of this year might be at the end of this year. I would say something so. Natalia, you have?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think just comparing to other industries, space industry is doing really well during the coronavirus, and there are not so many freezes in the recruitment processes. Again, it's as Yannick said, it's a little bit slower than usual, but the business is going. So we are hiring people. People are also having onboarding online and starting working from home. So the industry is definitely moving forward.
Okay, great, thank you. I think that's the last question we have time for. So if you would like to say any final comments to finish this webinar.
Well, I think we wanted to thank everyone who joined us, and we really hope it was useful. Definitely, please contact us if you have any further questions. You can find all the information to recruiters on our website. You can find also some typical jobs we have there, and if you feel like sending us open application, go ahead. We are always happy to receive your CV, and if there is any suitable position, we can contact you and explain the recruitment process with us.
And if you are on LinkedIn, I will not say, I will not talk for my colleagues, but at least for me, if you are interested and you want to have a bit further information, feel free also to contact me on LinkedIn. I'm more than welcome to help you and connect.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to have you here today, and thank you to all of you for joining us. I hope you find this useful. We value your feedback and will be very grateful if you could take the time to fill out the short feedback form available on the website. To find out more about upcoming webinars in future and other events we run, follow spacecareers.uk on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and sign up to UKSEDS newsletter via UKSEDS.org. Thank you all once again. I'll see you all next time.